Great.
Okay. Yay. Amazing. We are good now. And I had my little pests again coming and I was like shooing them away, like, shoo, 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 please go. It's always interesting when I have to do the sessions when he's around, my boy. Okay, cool. So I think I was just highlighting how, you know, you doing this project, you don't realize, like, besides the content and whatever's in the book that's uncovering a lot of what the world, you know, the research hasn't been done. So you're one of the first few to have done the work. But I think you taking on a project like that, you being a South African woman, it is so inspirational because for me, it makes me believe that I can do anything that I want to do.
I am humbled, you know, and I suppose that's where the conversation around taking up spaces really comes from, you know. While that was not the primary intent, that look, I want to be like this first, and that was not really in the horizon. The horizon was to kind of lend the message, you know, to lend the set of knowledge and to encourage other researchers. Hopefully, I was actually very skeptical if people would want to continue to research this piece. You know, I think when I published, if I was not the first, I was one of the first few to publish at master's level in this particular field, because it was extremely impossible to find anything in an African context or a South African context for that matter around the topic. The topic was also very thin globally, so you needed to have really great support to know where to go. If you hit a brick wall, you needed to have a really strong research plan, you know. I'm glad that is able to inspire other people, you know, and I'm very humbled that it is inspiring other women, you know, that I also have great respect for, like yourself, you know, in the space that you're doing, in the change and the contribution that you make, particularly with this channel and these sessions that we have, that, you know, there is a lot that we can do if we all just dare to take up space in the right spaces. You know, there is so much we can achieve.
Yeah, I like that word, dare, because if you're going to make change or create impactful change on our continent, in the world, you need to dare. So I think there's a few words that you're using: curiosity and that daringness. I think those are key. Those are key. Sure.
Yeah,
How long did it actually, yeah?
yes, go ahead.
No, I was asking, how long did it actually take from beginning to the end? And I'm sure you did take breaks in between, but how long did it take you?
So it took me a solid 6 months, right, to put it together. But in earnest, if you translate those 6 months into normal hours of what a normal person should be working, you can multiply that by 3, you know. So it was really an intense process, you know. At the end, when I was submitting, my supervisor was actually ill because we were available round the clock, you know. He says to me that I was probably the most independent of his students that he supervised at master's and PhD level. But I really think that I drew on a lot from him and Shamlene. It takes him, you know. The night that I was submitting, he was literally ill, you know, and there were a lot of things that we needed to have done administratively, and this poor man had to, like, literally peel himself off his sick bed because we needed to take care of the admin stuff. So like I said, it took me 6 months to recover from it, you know. The sleeping patterns are a mess. Your body is trying to catch up. It's trying to recover. So yeah, I would say if you're willing to give up your entire life and your family is there to sacrifice, you know, their life with you, you literally live with people that you don't live with because you live in the study, you know. You just, if you're lucky, you get 2-3 hours of sleep, and you're trying to do this in between work and everything else. So yeah, I had really great support. It took 6 months, but it was amazingly rewarding, if I may say that.
Sure. I think it was worthwhile. It was definitely worth it. Now, having to juggle that with work, did you find that, because I mean, so you're saying that the family around you was supportive, you had a very good support structure, but you also obviously had deliverables at work, and you have this thing that you needed, the book that you needed to see through, the research that you're doing, packaging it, making sure that it's, at a quality that you would be satisfied with. So did you find that any bit of your life struggled, like work, for example, because you're now juggling? Did that
Yeah.
suffer?
Look, I've always been one of those like high achievers by nature in a workspace, but it also takes having very honest conversations with the team to say, guys, look, I'm in this journey. This is what it's demanding from me. This is how much I can do. This is what I'll be able to achieve. Anything you're used to, the over and above, but in this instant, this takes priority. And I had a very supportive team, and that also made it possible. I know that when this year started, my boss said, "Refilwe, please tell me you're not doing your PhD this year." Because I actually need you.
Yeah.
And I said, well, not this year, but you can expect it maybe, I just don't know when, but don't put it out of the cards yet because it might just be following. And it's like, okay, great. At least you're going to give us a year or so and then we can pick up again, But I think I had a very supportive team, and just also I think when you see through your commitments, and you are able to anticipate demand and supply, even in your own life, because I've always been one to say, look, the expertise that we take into a work environment, you should be able to apply them in your life environment. So if you know how to, if you have conversations about demand and supply, either academically or professionally, you should know how to manage that personally as well. So it tests your capabilities as a person to apply your knowledge across various environments. So I was able to anticipate that, look, and this year it's not going to be like super skyrocketing, knock it out of the park kind of environment. I will do what is necessary. I will enable the teams that need to shine, the team members that need to shine, and that's how it worked, and it worked out, and we're back in the swing of things, and yes, things are flying high as usual.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that. So there's a question here. What past teachings from your childhood carried you through this journey, and what would you have liked to have known before you started the journey?
Wow, okay, this is an interesting question. Two things from my childhood. One, my mother has always been one person who believed in education, It took me a while to plug into it. When you grow up and academically, you've always been like fine-tuned, and you also have ways of finding opportunity, or you are blessed rather with opportunity. You tend to think, maybe I don't need this. But my mom has always been one who's a big advocate for education and just learning. And she's really not one that imposes it. She has a very creative way of making you want it.
Smart woman.
So eventually, yes, I got in love with finding knowledge. It wasn't really about the degree. It was just increasing my level of knowledge and level of thinking. And I think one thing, if I take out of this process, is my ability to learn. Forget the fact I've got a master's degree in business administration, etc. But out of that entire process of getting this degree, the one thing I value the most is my ability to learn and to learn on my own. There isn't a subject under the sun that I do not believe I cannot subject myself to the process of learning what that is. If I'm curious, I will be able to learn what that process or what that subject for me. But a second part comes from my father. Growing up, he used to say the word impossible does not exist. Like he would drum it onto us, It's like, oh, but I can't do this. Oh, but it's impossible to do this. You know, when you're negotiating as a child, you know, those teen years when you're in a big negotiation phase, and he kept saying the word impossible does not exist. One thing that I also saw with both my parents is just their work ethic, incredibly amazing. So
Mm,
you never think that because I have a job, because I'm a mom, because I'm a wife, then I can't study. You know, I've seen them juggle and do so many things at the same time. Even today, my mom is nearly 60, my dad is over 60. They still work me to the floor. Like literally, I say to my dad, no, it's 5 o'clock. Can we knock off? And he's like, no, let's just squeeze in one last meeting. I'm like, I can't, you know. So it's just that work ethic that you grow up around, you know, the environment of people that are making things happen for themselves, and you get to see it. They say that children do what they see more than what they are told to do. So I suppose it's me growing up in that environment, and that also assisted me in that space.
mm.
I answered the question. I think there was the last part to the question. I hope I actually, okay. It says, and what would you have liked to have known before? Oh wow. I would have loved to have known that sometimes you need a PA, you know, to get through certain,
Whoa.
you know, even if it's a certain short space of time. Sometimes you need assistance, and there are people that are out there who are really great support for people's life objectives, because for them that is them meeting their life objectives. So finding
Mm,
those symbiotic relationships and forming those partnerships and those collaborative relationships with people that can help me push along without carrying the entire cross on my own, you know.
mm.
I think that is something that I would have loved to have known before I started. I dived into it, and I'm like, oops, maybe I should. But you
Yeah.
know, in the middle of it at the time, and things need to start moving, and yeah.
That's actually an interesting one that you're mentioning with regards to the PA. I always make a joke and I say, oh gosh, I need a PA for my life because, also always being someone who like is hungry for more and I'm always doing this and this and that. And it feels like when you're doing it alone, when you're carrying that cross that you speak about, it becomes heavy. And you're
Yes.
like, sometimes something as basic as, oh gosh, I wish I had a meal that was waiting for me. I wish there was someone who was just preparing something as simple as a meal so I can
Yeah.
focus on what I need to do and on what matters. So I
And
completely relate to that.
so, and you remember that we all have different passions, and some people's passions rely on creating enabling environment for other people, you know, and literally playing and working in the background to make certain things happen. That is what pushes them. That is what
Mm,
they're passionate about. And it would be great to actually find those collaborations. All of the books that I read about success coming up talked about having mastermind groups, having mentors, having basically speaking to having the assistance that you need. You know, as women, particularly, we've got greater responsibilities in the home. We've got greater responsibilities at work. We work 10 times harder, 10 times longer than our counterparts. And as a Black female, it's even worse, you know.
mm,
And I think the International Labour Organization released a report on the number of hours that women spent doing on non-economic jobs, you know, like simple taking care of the family, the household kind of work that is unpaid, you know. And that is actually work that is work that is really decent work that should carry a pay to it, you know. But we
mm,
seem to be able to carry it, fit it into our work, official corporate life, fit it into our study lives, etc. And that is what takes a toll on us, you know. And when we learn to work smart and find those collaboration and those symbiotic career ambitions, I think that's where
mm.
we hit the sweet spot.
Sure. Now, with that said, how did you, or even till today, I think your current role, you're a digital strategist.
Yes.
Okay. So how then with all these things and you being this very driven individual, and I've seen a few comments and even on the first part of the session to say you've always been this committed and disciplined woman who does so well at whatever she invests herself in. So how do you know when you need to take a moment to actually pause? And how do you do that successfully with the mind, the kind of mind that you have that's so curious and wants to effect change? How do you pause? Do you know how to pause?
I had to build it and actually learn that. It was not an easy one. I mean, to this day, I have an alarm clock that says downtime. You know, um, my 8 o'clock. That's when I have tea. I have moments of just relaxing and just listening to my thoughts. Because when you're on the go, it gets even overwhelming for you. When you're a character that's always driven and you're on the go, sometimes you don't even have that moment to check the rear view mirror, to check the side
Mm,
blind spots. So I've literally programmed myself into moments of rest. There
mm,
is, and there are intervals in the year that I take to rest and to take care of me, body,
mm.
mind, and soul. I used to laugh, and when I shared this with my sisters, because I had 3 sisters, and I said, I schedule my crying moments, when I'm overwhelmed and I'm like, I'm tired. I'm like, okay, I put a leave and I stay home. My husband doesn't know anything because he would probably panic seeing me in tears without knowing what is wrong, because nothing would be wrong. And I'm just overwhelmed. And I'm like, I need to let all of this out. And then you gather your strength and you go. I mean, it's natural. You must understand your own weaknesses, understand your limitations, understand when it is enough, and know that sometimes I would know that it's enough and I won't actually adhere to sitting down. So how do I program myself to sitting down and say, take a moment?
Sure. Because I mean, you're not a machine, right? So it is necessary and important to do that. Wow, I like that. I like that. Sure. Do you actually manage to? Because and there was actually a question. Now Kiki was asking about failure. So you being a high achiever, you know, how do you deal with failure? Because I think that's one of the things that can be very crippling. Can be very crippling. And failure
Yeah.
is also, it depends how you. It's also about how you define failure. But
Yeah.
how do you deal with that?
Look, it's one of the difficult things that I deal with. You just see it when me and the boys are playing pool snooker, you know, and you have your moments, where you like the game is on and it's on your side, and then the table turns and you're just on a losing streak, and you're just removing emotions from the event is what is important, and that is what even removing your emotions from your ambitions, right? Be very logical, because the truth is, if that game didn't go right, it's that game, it's not you that didn't go right. So that's
Mm,
the problem that most high achievers get wrong. They blend their achievements or their ambitions to themselves. So
mm,
an ambition does not realize, it's not you that did not realize. You're still the same person that is ambitious. It's just that that opportunity might not have been the right timing for it. It might not have landed in the right environment. So it has failed. It's that opportunity. I've started a number of business throughout my life, and some businesses have had to fold. And it is those businesses that had to fold at the time. It's not because Refilwe is a failure, because you know what,
mm,
when you look at the complete whole, Refilwe actually isn't. It's just that project that I started didn't quite go well. This project didn't quite go well. So it's an active consciousness of removing and not blending yourself into the ambition. Be passionate,
mm.
but don't define yourself with the things that you do. Be you, know yourself, separate from the things, because the project, who does it? The project doesn't do itself. Who gave birth to the project? The project didn't just come out of nowhere. It came from you, right? So you are the success, right? If the environment as it interacts, you find partners, things don't quite work out, you find clients that really didn't work out, it's that moment. It's not you. So it's just having that wisdom to separate the two.
Sure. Did you always know that? Because I know, like, a big part of the journey. I mean, I've heard some business schools, because I know you have an MBA, and the journey of just attaining a master's degree is not an easy one. I mean, I always say you can't be called a master of anything without being chiseled a little bit around the edges. You come out of the process and you need to be a bit more polished than you were before. So some business schools, I know they'll allocate them like life coaches, is there, like, did you always know this, or have you had some sort of support structure in a different kind of way outside of your family to say you would go for these therapy sessions or check in with your life coach or that sort of thing to always remind yourself that Refilwe is not defined by whatever difficulty she's finding along the journey and etc.
So I've had the great opportunity of being introduced to reading quite early in my teens. In fact, as young as 9, I started reading a lot. Any book I would grab, I would just read. Whatever subject. So I've relied a lot on coaching, on the books that I've read. As I identify things that I'd like to improve on myself, I would go and find a book that would assist me in that. Get a couple of writers that would give me a different view. I haven't really had the best of luck in saying, okay, I've got this Black female role model or life coach that I could plug into. I've attempted that quite a few times, But what I find is that those people are very rare. And that's probably the reason why I have made myself available to a lot of young people that need coaching, and that need mentoring. Because when I was looking for it, I would either find a Black male or a white male or a white female who were great, but they could not resonate fully with some of the challenges that I had to deal with, whether in a personal, corporate, or just professional life, in general. So it was literally piecing all those pockets of wisdom from everywhere, and trying to find something that would define me and work for me. So it's not something that I've always known, because it was trial and error for a while. Even now, it's not like a perfect and absolute certain knowledge. You have to be conscious of it, because it is very natural to go back to bashing yourself for not really achieving the things that you wanted.
100%. So what we're going to do later on, I'm going to, just like you and I offline, list of those books so that I can share with people on my story, so that it could be the top 5 to 10 books that have had the greatest impact on your life from that perspective. I think it's always good to share that sort of thing. Ora was asking, do you think studying and working was a good decision, or would you advise someone to try and only focus on one thing at a time? That's a very good question.
Well, I have worked and studied all my work life. I think it's a good decision, and remember that we come from families that don't necessarily can afford to put you in school until you reach your master's degree or your PhD or whatever, So at a certain point, you need to say, okay, your family would say, okay, Refilwe, this is how far we can take you from here. That's where you take yourself. And I've always, since my working career, I've always studied. My undergrad, I was working. Throughout the master's, I worked. And I found a perfect balance in it. And I think it's just being able to manage your time and as a very important resource in your life well, to know that, okay, I have to make sacrifices. I might not always be able to show up for all the baby showers, all the birthday parties, all the weddings, I might need to make that decision. There isn't certain things don't come without a trade-off. What are the trade-offs that you are comfortable with? The drinks with the girls, are you okay to give that up for you to pursue something that you like? Would the girls still be there after 3 years when you're done with your undergrad? If yes, then go for it. It means when people are going to chill at a farmer's market, for instance, one of the painful memories I had was my entire family went to the Four West Farmers Market, and it was so lovely. And I was the only one stuck in a study on a Sunday afternoon, and I could just see the pictures going. They came, they took their child, they went, and it was fun. It's one of those moments. You are going to miss out on some of those things, but against that and what you want to achieve, you must be very clear with your objectives. And yeah, if you want, you'll get it. You'll do the trade-offs.
That's something that I probably needed to hear today. So, goodness, done with coursework, just supposed to be working on the thesis, has had me questioning a few of my life decisions and the crux of it. I read the other day, I was just sitting and I was thinking, you know what, the crux of this thing, and I think this what has been the most difficult part of the journey for me, is, you know, when you're doing coursework, it's very much structured. You've got classes you're going to, you've got assignments that are due, so you submit, and then you're done. And then this thesis, it's all up to you. It's all up to you. And if you don't continuously remind yourself why you actually signed up for this thing, there's always going to be something. So I'm a lover of life. I love life. I show up fully. And now I was just thinking the other day, I'm like, girl, you're going to have to make some sacrifices, some real sacrifices if you're going to see this thing to the end. Because like you say, it's summer, it's, you know, nice time, you're being invited for a drink or whatever, but that's actually taking time away from making sure that you get this thing done. And I wanted to ask you, did you, because it sounds like you've been very disciplined through the journey and very committed to it. And knowing that, listen, it is painful what I'm going through, but it's for a greater cause. I've lost my trail of thought now. I had it, this question. Okay.
While you find
yeah.
it, I think the important thing is to have these conversations with the people around you. Even my friends understood what I was going through. I remember when I finished, my friends were doing cartwheels, you know, yay, we are done. Like they owned the moment, you know, along with that, we can't see Refilwe. But the moment I finished, everybody was excited. Yay, we are done. We're catching up. And it was just a series of that. And I literally dedicated this year to showing up, you know, to being there, you know, being there for my friends. Yes, COVID happened, but, you know, just being plugged in, have that video chat, etc. So I literally was conscious of the fact that, look, I've not been available. And now we are all done. And I'm talking my family, my husband, my son. I remember my son goes, Mommy, you're done, you know. So my husband, my son, you know, just showing up for those people, my family, my extended family, my friends, you know, everybody that has made sacrifices, because it's not just you that makes the sacrifice journey. Have the conversation in an honest way and say, guys, you know what? You're going to miss me a bit for the next 3 or so months, you know, but we'll catch up. You know, this is what I'm doing. My son was so sweet throughout the process. In fact, my whole family was sweet. My husband would wake me up with coffee, and he still does every morning. My son would sometimes stay up with me. You know, he would pass out on the couch in the study. He'd make me coffee and tea. He knew at what time I needed coffee, at what time I needed tea, constantly checking, are you okay? Should we run you a bath? Are you all right? You know, so you take people along with the journey so that they also don't feel left out or behind.
Sure. That's a valid one, because how else will they know that how much to, because sometimes what I've picked up when I speak to a lot of people who've walked the journey, they've said, I mean, I remember I had a friend a few years ago who was doing it 2 years ago, and I didn't understand. I'm like, friend, we don't see you the whole year. And, you know, eventually she finished. And she was saying to me, one of the challenges that she has had now post completing the degree is it wasn't easy to sort of integrate back into normal life. Not only were people, I guess if you're having the conversation up front with your loved ones, it makes it a lot easier versus if you're like completely shutting them out, then when you're ready to come back, you're just like, oh, you're back now and you expect us to just switch like that, you know?
Now we're good enough.
Sure. Wow. Good.
It's always good to have the conversation ahead of time.
I think so as well. There was quite an interesting point that Tebogo Mpa made. He said, I once read a piece which said people fail because they don't know what they want to succeed in. And it means that we should not focus on a lot of things at once. And he was asking if you agree or disagree with that statement.
I can't agree more. You know, when I share a list of books that keep me focused or that have kept me honest to my ambitions, one is around the power of focus, you know, and that is probably the single most important aspect that you need, because when your mind is constantly creating, coming up with a new, the biggest challenge for you is seeing one thing through, you know. And what do you need for that is you need a very incredible, an amazing, remarkable power to focus on a task and see it through. So those are some of the issues. It's important, you know. A lot of people would say, no, don't put a lot of eggs in one basket. It's not putting a lot of eggs in one basket. It's actually seeing through what you started. We are all either starters or finishers, but sometimes the whole continuum of a process relies with you. So you will need, whether you're a starter or not, you need to be able to see it through to the end, and you need to build the capability within you. If you can't focus, find ways that will force you into focus. Some of the times it sounds really silly, because sometimes my mind is always on a buzz and on a go, that I have to write a note to myself and plug it on my laptop screen that says focus. Like every time my mind goes, then I have this thing right in front of me, little sticky notes that I have in the study or I have in the bedroom. At the time when I was studying, I had sticky notes everywhere. You can do this.
You need
don't
those
get
pep
tired.
talks.
Yeah, like give myself pep talks every day throughout the day, because that's what you need sometimes, because sometimes it gets really hard to see certain things through. But when you are honest with what your weaknesses are and you build the solutions ahead of time, it becomes easier.
Now you've triggered something as you were answering that. You've triggered something, a thought in my head. So we're speaking about the digital revolution, and obviously just trying to understand what the journey has been like for you. Just looking at digital itself, and you're a digital strategist. I mean, the word digital keeps coming up over and over again. I'm finding increasingly that part of my battles with my journey right now with the study is that there's a lot of distractions. So we're speaking about focus, and now one of, I think, the downsides of this digital revolution, everything is here. So how then do we just kind of switch off and say, with this digital revolution happening, with everything being online, with things being fast paced, how do we actually focus?
Look, I mean, you're absolutely right. We are in a highly stimulated generation, because there is media everywhere, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all these different, and at the fingertips, it's not something that you would have to go switch on a television to look at, even when you are on TV, it's Showmax, it's Netflix, it's a plethora of things that you can just run a marathon on. Before you know it, you've got 8 hours gone because you were on a series. The whole day is gone. So it's knowing what to switch off. What are your detractors? What are the triggers, that you have? I knew what my triggers were, and sometimes it was difficult because I needed to balance all my other responsibilities. I couldn't completely get off social media, right? But I knew the platform that consumed a lot of my time, so I switched that one off, and use the others to redirect what I needed to do in social media. For instance, I would need to follow particular conversations on digital revolution on Twitter. Twitter was the best. LinkedIn was also quite relevant in the economic conversations, etc. And those were the ones that I kept live, right? I still had my Instagram. I never had to switch it off, but I literally had to switch off my Facebook, like literally shut it down, right? And then only shut it back on once I was done. So you just gotta know what is it that trails you or that triggers you from falling off. It's again that consciousness of yourself and your environment, just being aware of yourself, and that is the thing that will help you the most.
Sure. You have such a great level of self-awareness. It's very refreshing. I think with a lot of what you've spoken about, it forces you to look inward and say, hey, I mean, there's no copy and paste type of approach, but you have to look inward and say, for me, what are those triggers? So I appreciate it. So refreshing, incredibly refreshing.
Thank you. Thank you. My dad called it having a meeting with yourself. It's introspection. You need to have those meetings with yourself to know what makes you, what limits you, what inspires you, what lights up the fire. It's not something that just happens to you. It's something that you must literally go inward, spend some time with yourself, look deep, honestly, through a very, very honest lens, and get to learn about your strengths and your weaknesses.
Scheduling those cry moments, like you're saying, to say, oh, today I'm feeling overwhelmed by whatever, so I'm going to cry today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Sure. So I think just in closing, I think this conversation has been a really, really, really amazing one. I am going to save this on my Instagram TV, like I said, and I'll also upload it on YouTube. I'll share the link with you. It just sucks that we've had to divide it in two because obviously there's that first part that we
Yeah.
did, but I managed to save that as well. But just in closing, you touched briefly on how you are helping other people as well, younger people. Do you have like formal sort of mentorship, or are you happy for anyone to like send you a DM, reach out to you to ask about whatever it is, just to get some encouragement from you, whether it's about also the topic on the digital revolution. So is
Yeah.
there something, yeah?
I am absolutely open to that. I think the more of us are speaking actually about the topic, the better, the greater velocity we build around the knowledge, the engagement on the topic. It's actually something that I welcome quite greatly in my space. So definitely send me a DM and let's have conversations. And yes, I do have formal mentorship programs with young entrepreneurs, either in any of the industries that I've worked in, because there's been a plethora of industries that I've touched over the many years that I've been in corporate and in business. So there are those formal programs, that I engage in, and formal sessions that I have with young people, and to also close that gap, because there isn't a lot of mentors for young people that they can identify with, at least when you've gone through the phase, you've been 25, you've tried to start your business, you understand the passion. When a 25-year-old conveys that passion to you, you understand that, okay, I understand where we're going, but then you take your knowledge and your wisdom of experience and say, look, can you look at 1, 2, 3? Don't you think like maybe you could take this angle? Maybe look at this, go and investigate. And I think that the one thing that I'm very passionate about is building capability, not spoon feeding, right? Because
Woo!
right now, a lot of young people, when they want mentorship, it's like, no, Refilwe can link me up to Bitumelo because I want to get XYZ from Bitumelo. No. Refilwe's approach is how to teach you to approach Bitumelo, so that the next time there's another Bitumelo, you shouldn't be saying, who can link me up? You should be able to knock on any door that you need to be able to get assistance. So I focus more on building capability than spoon feeding, So that would be the first filter for me, for anyone that wants me to engage with them, that are you willing to do the work? Because I'm not going to do the work for you. If I know Bitumelo, she's my Bitumelo, right? But you want to know Bitumelo, I'll teach you how to get hold of a Bitumelo. And sometimes it's Bitumelo plus 10 other options that would give you exactly the same thing. So if Bitumelo says no, then what are you going to do? Because Bitumelo might not be looking for you, right? You need to have the capability to knock on 9 other doors for you to get what you want. So that is the focus that I have. And yes, definitely I'm open to having conversations and chats around that.
I love that. And the book, obviously, we get it on Amazon.
Book is available on Amazon. The link is on my bio.
Oh,
My phone's ringing. We're 8 minutes over and I need to go to another meeting, but it's available. Go on and get yourself a copy.
so proud of you. Keep flying that flag high. So inspirational. Thank you for your time. I think we are going to see you doing even greater things. I speak that into your life. Thank you for
Thank you
sharing
so
yourself with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. You and everybody else that joined in.
Okay, awesome. We'll touch base offline. Go ahead and dash to your meeting, and then I'll share the list of books, and I'll also share your handle so that people can go and find you and yeah, see where this takes us. Thank you so
Okay.
much. Have a lovely
Thank
evening.
you. Cheers then.
Cool. Thank you, everybody.